Hey guys, welcome to the MMAOB Daily Show for Thursday, May 23rd. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, here to talk about the latest news and notes in the world of MMA. And today's actually kind of a special day, I guess, because we're going to be talking about PFL Season 2 that actually is happening tonight. The odds just dropped like maybe half an hour ago, so they're fresh odds, but I've already got a chance to take a look at the fight, so definitely want to talk about those. But first and foremost, guys, of course, you can find me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin and my 5 websites, MMAOddsbreaker.com, SureDark.com, BJPen.com, MMAratings.net, and MMAnews.com. Like I said earlier in the week, I've been kind of sick with the cold. I think I'm finally getting over it, thankfully. So hopefully no hiccups today, and hopefully my voice starts to clear up a little bit. Just a few news and notes. As you can see back there, Bad Boy, that's the sponsor of the podcast. Got to thank Will Turlin. He sent me a really cool banner and some really cool oversized boxing gloves to throw in the background here. I'm working on the presentation, guys. You know, this definitely came up on short notice, the podcast doing it solo. So working on the presentation, just ordered a new light. So hopefully that's going to help with some of the darkness. My room's not obviously ideal for this, but you know, we're going to make do. So I'm definitely excited to be here, guys. I love doing the show. It's only been 4 days, but I've really been enjoying it so far, and definitely want to, you know, get right into it this week. So, or for today, I should say. Let's just get right into it. Okay, so the PFL, I can talk about the PFL card in a second, but let me just get to some fights first. First off, there's a really good bantamweight bout that's been booked for UFC 241 between Corey Sandhagen and Rafael Sunsao. BJPen.com, I just wrote an article about that fight, so take a look at that. First off, Rafael Sunsao, number 2 ranked guy in the world. He's coming off a loss to Marlon Moraes, but we know he beat him already by split decision, but still, he's got to win over the guy that many, including myself, think is probably going to be the next champion. He also has a win over the former champ, TJ Dillashaw. Sure, both of those are split decisions, but this guy's proven time and time again he's one of the best in the world. Before the loss to Moraes, he had won 4 straight fights over a couple of guys like Rob Font, and you also has wins over guys like Pedro Munoz and Aljamain Sterling. So this guy has a tremendous record in the sport, 11-3 in the UFC alone. He also has a win way back in the day over Jorge Masvidal, which, you know, that's an old win, but still, I mean, that's a great win for a guy that's 135 fighting a guy who's 170 now. So Rafael Sunsao is one of the best guys in the world at 135. Of course, he's 36 now. He seems to be in somewhat of a decline, but at the same time, I still think he's one of the best guys in the world. And I love this fight against Corey Sandhagen. This is actually a fight I called for after Sandhagen just beat John Lineker in his last fight by split decision. Sandhagen, 27 years old, Colorado native. He's 4-0 in the UFC. He's beaten Yuri Alcantara, John Lineker, like I mentioned, Mario Batista, and Austin Arnett. One loss in his career to Jamal Emmers, who's a pretty good prospect. That was in the LFA in 2017. But, you know, since then, he's looked amazing. Love this fight. Tough one to call, though. I mean, obviously, Sunsao's proven that he's one of the best guys in the world. But I think Sandhagen, you know, you talk about the 135-pound prospects like Peter Yan and Daniel Wood. I think Sandhagen's right there, too. So, to me, this is a really close fight to call. To be honest, like, I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards Sandhagen just because I think there's so much upside there, and he's also 9 years younger, which obviously is a huge deal in the fight game, youth advantage. But, you know, Rafael Sunsao is an amazing fighter. So either way, great fight, great matchup. That card looks so stacked right now. Main event, Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic rematch, Nate Diaz versus Pettis, and Paulo Costa versus Yoel Romero. So that card's shaping it to be really nice, UFC 241. And who else wanted to fight in that card? Oh, I think Ian Heinisch, he did an interview with James. He said he wants to fight Derek Brunson on that card. So that card looks really stacked. Can't wait for that one. Definitely looking forward to that. And another card that another fight was just announced for, I talked about this card yesterday, the UFC San Antonio card, and a really intriguing heavyweight matchup is added to this card. Greg Hardy's taking on Juan the Kraken Adams. Wow. I mean, another tough fight to call. I mean, Greg Hardy, you know, for all his faults, yeah, and the guy, you know, we can talk about his personal life and everything he's did in his past. If we, you know, we need a whole podcast to talk about that kind of stuff and just the ethics of the UFC signing him in general. But as far as an MMA fighter goes, I mean, this guy is a great prospect at heavyweight, 30 years old, amazing athlete, 4-1 as a pro, 4 knockouts. He had the loss to Alan Crowder in the beginning of the year, disqualification, but then came back with that TKO over Dmitry Smoliakov. But I mean, that guy was that guy should not be in the UFC. I mean, that was an embarrassing performance by him. The guy just ran around and basically ran away from Greg Hardy. Got finished. He pretty much just gave up in that fight. Dana White was critical. I don't think that guy's coming back to the UFC. But at the same time, Juan Adams, I mean, talk about disappointments. I thought really highly of this guy coming off the he finished the first 5 fights in his career, including a win on the Contender Series to get in the UFC. And then he beat Chris De La Roca in his UFC debut. Not a really impressive performance, but still got the third round finish. Then his last fight against Arjun Buller, really, really disappointing. I don't know what happened to him in that fight. Just his takedown defense was bad, but also his striking looked really bad. So just a really poor performance. He's from Texas, trains there, so he'll have maybe some fans cheering for him. Greg Hardy, former Dallas Cowboy, he'll have some fans, I'm sure, cheering for him, maybe booing, well, definitely booing him as well. I like this matchup. I think it's the right next step up for Greg Hardy. And I think he should be favored in this fight, just based on historically fans or bettors, I should say, like to bet on him, and he's always a big favorite. But it's a tough fight to call. I mean, Juan Adams is still, I think, a decent prospect, and I think coming off the loss should probably motivate him for a better performance here. So I can see it going either way. I definitely think Greg Hardy's going to be favored. I have to think about who I'm going to pick in this one a little bit more, but definitely for betting status, I would assume Greg Hardy's going to be a solid favorite in this fight. Also, another thing I want to talk about quickly, I wrote an article at bjpenn.com about this. Cosmo Alexander, he knocked out Sage Northcutt last weekend. Brutal knockout, one of the contenders for knockout of the year. He is taking aim with the haters of Sage Northcutt because I shouldn't say a lot of fans, a segment of MMA fans have gone on to Sage's Twitter and his Instagram and harassed this guy after he went and posted some pictures of him basically mending in the hospital. I mean, that's to me very sad and pathetic that people would be so petty to kick a guy while he's down. I mean, to me, Sage Northcutt he's never been like a great fighter, and he definitely is overrated as a fighter, but I think he's a really nice guy, and he's never really did anything wrong to anyone. I think people just hate on him because he's a good-looking guy, and he's been successful in his career. I mean, this kid's like 23 years old. He's a young guy. He's had ups and downs in his career. He's cost me some money betting on him. I remember I bet on him against Brian Barberino a couple of years ago. That was not a good bet. Cost me some money, but I mean, it is what it is, right? It's fighting. People are going to win, people are going to lose, and Sage has kind of proven that maybe he's not a top guy, prospect that we thought he'd be, but he's still a decent human being, and I think it's pretty disgusting the way fans have treated him. So Cosmo Alexander just went on an interview with MMAfighting.com's Guillermo Cruz and just said he was just really disappointed with the fans that were tagging him in these posts saying, this guy sucks and you knocked him out and you killed this guy, and if the guy who knocked him out is saying that, like, leave the guy alone. So I doubt anyone listening to the show has been the kind of people that have been harassing Sage Northcutt. But if you know anyone who has, just tell them to stop it because Sage is a good kid. Leave the guy alone. He'll be back. Yeah. And also Uriah Faber, by the way, said that this guy he had 30 broken bones in his face. So he needed surgery, obviously. All the best to Sage because, again, I like him as a person. I think he's a nice guy, and I hope he gets better. One other note before I get into PFL, Habib Nurmagomedov, his teammates Abubakar Agomedov and Zubair Tukhugov have both had their suspensions slightly reduced, so they'll be eligible to fight at UFC 242 in Abu Dhabi. And you know what? I mean, it's the right thing to do. First off, those guys are popular Muslim-based fighters, obviously. That's going to be, I'm not going to say they're draws, but they're going to be prominent fighters on the undercard for that card. They're Habib's friends. The Habib has a lot of pull in the sport. They had, I think, 2 long suspensions, everyone in that incident, so I'm glad that we've seen kind of cooler heads prevail. We'll see what happens. I don't know who they're going to get matched up against. I'm assuming both guys will fight in that card, though, or at least Zubaira anyways. So we'll see what happens there. But, it's good that card's kind of being put together. I've talked about a couple of the matchups yesterday. Again, lots of Muslim-based fighters are going to be in that card. Habib and Dustin Poirier are 99% going to main head at that card, and that's a great fight. So I'm looking forward to that one. Let's talk about PFL now. All right, so the odds dropped like an hour, like I said, an hour ago maybe now. Maybe. Not sure why these odds makers are taking so long. We need Nick Galikas back doing PFL. By the way, Nick did the Combachi Americas odds. Those are on Best Fight odds. You can check those out. Nick's the best guy in the sport doing the odds. So it's a shame that he's not able to do all the odds because they would have been out 3 or 4 days ago, I'm sure. But it is what it is. At least they're out now. So let's just get right into them here. 1 second here, pulling up Best Fight odds. All right, so main event of the evening, Lance Palmer against Alex Gilpin, featherweight fight. Lance Palmer opened at -675, which is obviously a crazy line. Let me just take a look at the opening odds here. 1 second, guys. I have the article coming out at MMAOddsbreaker.com very shortly. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, Palmer -675, Alex Gilpin +425. And so far, actually, there's been some early action on Gilpin. And you know what? Honestly, I don't blame people for putting a little bit of money on this guy. I mean, Lance Palmer's amazing, no doubt about it. Coming off of 6 straight wins. He won the tournament. He beat Steven Siler and Andre Harrison. Good wins. Actually beat Styler twice in PFL, so those are some solid wins. Taking on this guy Gilpin, who actually is a Contender Series alum. He actually submitted his last opponent in Contender Series last summer. He's on a 7-fight win streak. One loss in his career to Dan Murray, who's in the UFC in the lightweight division. So definitely a good prospect here. But at the same time, Lance Palmer he's a champion for a reason. He's a great fighter. I think he should have been in the UFC a long time ago, but he's making bank in PFL, so good for him. Gilpin, I think, there was a live dog a little bit. I mean, again, all those wins, it's not like Palmer hasn't lost before either. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that Palmer should be favored. He should be a big favorite. But at these odds, I think maybe there's some people on the right track here taking a shot on the dog at Gilpin. I personally would probably just pass on this one, guys. I do think Palmer's going to win, but as far as line value, there's none, not at minus 500, 600, whatever he is. He's minus 505 now. So I think you'll see some more, just people taking punts on Gilpin, drop the line a little bit. But, yeah, we'll see what happens in that fight. Definitely an interesting matchup because I think Gilpin's actually a pretty good prospect. But again, Lance Palmer's a great fighter. Next up, co-main event is Chris Wade against Nate Andrews. So this is actually an interesting one. Opening odds for this one were Chris Wade minus 230, Nate Andrews plus 170. Chris Wade, 14-5 record in MMA. He is 2-2 in PFL. Beat Robert Watley, beat Yuki Kawana, but also lost to Nathan Schulte twice, including a split decision in the finals. There's not the finals, I should say, in the semifinals. And Nathan Schulte's a great fighter. We'll talk about him in a second. So I think Chris Wade's decent, but he's lost, quite a few fights in his career. I don't think he's unbeatable by any means. And then on the other hand, you got Nate Andrews here, 15-1 record. He is 35, so he's a little older, but he's coming off of 9 straight wins in CES. He was a lightweight champion there. And he's got some, I'd say, decent wins, I guess. Like Julian Lane's a noble guy. Bruce Borington fought WSOF. Last fight beat Bryce Logan, also beat Dewan Owens. So he's got some okay wins against some decent prospects, I guess. You know what? Honestly, I think Chris Wade's a good fighter, but I'm not buying him as a minus 230 favorite here. He is the younger guy, no doubt about it. But again, he's beatable. People have beat him, and I think he can lose this fight too. Even though he is fighting in Long Island, guys, I think there's definitely some value here in the dog. And right now, the dog, Nate Andrews, is plus 200. So I'm putting my money on the dog here, if anything. Again, it could be a situation where it's a close fight. And some of these PFL fights are funny because, they are draws and the winner advances, so you get your money back. I'd rather go with Nate Andrews here, honestly, at plus 200 rather than laying minus 280 on Chris Wade, which is what he's currently at. Next up, we have wow, talk about a mismatch here. Andre Harrison minus 1350 against Peter Petty's plus 650. I mean, wow. And the line has dropped a bit. Andre Harrison minus 900 and Peter Petty's plus 500 now. So the line's dropped. But again, how do you not go with Andre Harrison in this fight? 21 record. He did lose to Lance Palmer in the finals, but he also has another win over Palmer. He's got some really good wins in his career. Pobo Bazea, Nazareno Malajari, Steven Siler, Des Green, Kurt Hollabaugh, Cody Bollinger. Like this guy, he honestly should be in the UFC. The problem is he's boring and he doesn't finish fights. That's just the truth. But he's a really, really good fighter as far as getting wins goes. So he knows how to get his hand raised. And Peter Petty's, yeah, I mean, his record it's either 6-4 or 8-4, depending where you look. And honestly, like the guys he's beaten are very mediocre fighters. And he's lost to some guys that are just not even UFC caliber. He did fight Julio Arce in Contender Series, lost, but I mean, this is a mismatch, no doubt about it. Yeah, I like Petty's in this fight, guys. I like Harrison to beat Petty's in this fight. I don't think there's any value in Petty's here. Even as a plus 500 dog, there's no value here on him. So I would definitely pass. Next up, we got Ahmed Aliev against Carlos Silva. That one's in the lightweight division. Aliev, 17-4 record. I should say the odds first. Aliev, minus 765. Carlos Silva, plus 455. Aliev, 17-4 record. He's on a 7-fight win streak. He has some good wins. Ivan George, Efren Escudero, Diego Brando, all former UFC fighters. So definitely some good wins here. Carlos Silva, 11-1 record. He's on a 5-fight win streak, but beaten really got no one that's notable. I mean, yeah, this looks like a mismatch. Again, you never know with these 2-round fights, but I think Aliev's gonna win, and he's a massive favorite now. He's actually been steamed up to minus 975. So people are all over this guy. Next up, we have Islam Mamedov versus Lise Yeroun. Mamedov opened at -600. Yarun at +400. Mamedov, let's take a look at him quickly. 16-2 record. He's on a he's on a nice win streak here. Yeah, wow. He's on like a 15-fight win streak. So, I mean, this guy, and he has good wins too. Nathan Schulte in WSOF, Thiago Tavares. Yeah, I mean, this guy, George Patino, veteran. So he's got some really, really, really good wins, no doubt about it. And Yarun, 16-4 record. He's on a nice win streak himself. Looks like about a 10-fight win streak here. But again, the level of competition, he doesn't fight anyone notable. Never know, but I think Mamedov wins, and the line's there for a reason. So definitely, you're talking parlays. I'm sure he'll be a popular one. Next up, you got Rashid Magomedov against Luke Radzhabov. Rashid, obviously, former UFC fighter. We know how good he is. He beat Rocco Martin in the UFC, Gilbert Burns, Bobby Green. Great wins. One loss in the UFC to Beneil Dariush. And then since coming to PFL, he's beaten Luis Firmino and Thiago Tavares, and then he lost to Nathan Schulte in the finals. I picked Schulte in that fight. He was a big underdog. I liked Schulte a lot in that fight. But I still think Rashid's a decent fighter. I don't know if I said the odds here. -565 for Rashid and Radzhabov +375. So his opponent here, 11-0, Radzhabov, making his PFL debut, undefeated in his career, lots of finishes. Again, not really fought anyone of note, so that's something to keep in mind here, the level of competition. Yeah, Rashid definitely deserves to be favored, but this is a guy that I think is on a slight decline, if anything. So there might be some value here, possibly on Radzhabov, but it's hard to say. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure with that one, guys. To be honest with you, I think Rashid probably does win, but yeah, I don't know about the line though. Next up, Schulte against Yinkang Bao. I don't know how you don't like Schulte in this fight. I mean, even at the odds, he opened at -900 and Bao's +500. You still have to go with Schulte. The guy's amazing. He's a fantastic fighter. Looked incredible in his last fight against Rashid. He's 4-0 in PFL, and he actually lost his WSAF debut to Mamedov. So since then, though, great. 2 wins over Chris Wade, win over Jason High, win over Rashid. Just really good. Bao coming off a loss in the regional scene in Asia. I mean, I don't know about this fight. This is a mismatch, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of weird matchmaking here. I guess it's just the luck of the draw. You got the top seed against the lowest seed. I guess that's how they did it. But yeah, definitely I like Schulte in that fight. What else do we have here? Luis Raphael taking on Jeremy Kennedy. So this one's kind of interesting. What are the odds on that? Kennedy -555. Luis Rafael Laurentino, that's how the odds makers have his name, +365. So Kennedy, 13-1 record, former UFC fighter, obviously, beat some good guys in the UFC like Ronnie Jason, Kyle Bochniak, Alex Ricci, lost to Volkanovski and then got cut, and since then won 2 straight fights in Brave CF. Still a great prospect. A guy I think needs to get more finishes, but he's did that on the regional scene. So hopefully in this fight he can show what he's got. And then you got Rafael, 33-1 record. He's lost 1 fight. It was 2 fights ago. So definitely a padded record, because if you look at who he's beaten, it's a bunch of guys without really any sort of names or any sort of experience whatsoever. But at the same time, I mean, 33-1, that's a pretty damn impressive record. So Kennedy's probably going to win this fight, but is it a guy I want to lay that kind of crazy juice on? Probably not. I think I'll probably pass on that one. What else? Damon Jackson. This is an interesting fight. Damon Jackson against Mavlid Khaybulaev. Khaybulaev -195, Jackson +155. Let's take a look at them quickly. Khaybulaev, 13-0 record, making his PFL debut, coming off a couple of good wins in fight nights and one championship. Beat Herbert Burns, who's the brother of Gilbert. So this guy's pretty good, I think. He's the favorite for a reason here. But David Jackson's the guy, 16-2 record, former UFC fighter, and you know what? He's got a lot of experience. He's fought some good guys, has some good wins. Since he got cut by the UFC, he's been nothing but win. And he kind of had a rough go in the UFC, I think. He lost to Yancy Medeiros in his debut by a bulldog choke. That was a crazy submission. Had a no contest against Ronnie Jason, and then he had a draw against Levon Makashvili, and then he got cut because his fights weren't that exciting. But still, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7-1 since then. Only lost to Kevin Aguilar. Last couple fights, he's beaten Jerry Spoon and Nate Jenneman, so some recognizable names at least. Honestly, I think that there could be some value on Jackson here as a dog, but it's hard to say because this Khaybulaev guy is definitely a highly touted prospect with undefeated record, and these Russian guys that did really well, I think, in PFL. So You know what? I would personally rather go Jackson here at dog money, but it's definitely a fight that could go either way. And then the only other fight on the card that I haven't talked about yet is Steven Siler against Gadzi Rabanadov. We have Steven Siler at -160, Rabanadov +120. It's nice to see Steven Siler finally get some respect. I mean, this guy never gets respect. And actually, I'm looking at the odds currently right now, and it's down to a pick 'em. So it looks like the bettors are coming in on the Russian guy here. I'm not surprised by that. Steven Siler, again, never gets any respect. 32, 18-1 record. The guy's fought forever against everyone. Um, he had a really good showing in the first PFL. Well, I shouldn't say his first go-around PFL because he fought one previously for them in WSOF. But in the first season, he went 3-1. He beat Alexander de Almeida twice. He beat Magomed Idzrazov. That was a massive upset at the time. So a couple of big upsets. And then he lost to Lance Palmer, which, again, no shame in that. And then you got Rabanadov, 11-3-2 record. He's won 3 straight fights. He's lost a couple times in his career, but finished. And Steven Siler's a guy who finished his fight. So, I think people are actually going to come in on the Russian guy, and I think you might see Siler again as a dog. And I think as a dog, I would rather take him. But it could be a spot where almost like his luck's run out a little bit. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's kind of been underrated in his career. We'll see what happens in that fight. I think overall, though, it's a pretty good card. I just want to see one thing here. Someone's okay. One sec. 3. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. Well, I thought that they were 2-round fights, but Topology is saying they're 3-round fights, so I could be wrong about that. Yeah. Looks like they're 2-round fights. Okay, so they're 3-round fights. So actually, I was wrong earlier when I said the fights were 2 rounds. Sorry about that, guys. So I think you will see some fights go the full 3. Obviously, my bad about that. But yeah, even with that being said, I think there is some upset potential here in these fights. So definitely take a look at that. And yes, I apologize for that. The fights are 3 rounds. So my apologies, guys. Somehow got that confused. I think later on when they do the 2 fights in one night, it's 2 rounds. So I apologize for that. But yes, the first round is 3-round fights. So you might probably see some finishes. And again, the way PFL is structured, the earlier the finish, the more points you get, the higher in the standings you get, the easier of a matchup you get later on in the playoffs. So again, my mistake earlier when I said they were 2 rounds. They are 3-round fights. But definitely a good card overall. I think I believe it's on ESPN Plus too now. So that's really good. And yeah. I think that's great for PFL, great for the fighters. Again, they paid them a lot of money last season, so I'm excited for that. I think that's about it for now, guys. I think I covered everything I wanted today. So definitely tomorrow I'll be recapping the PFL card from last night and talking about any other fight announcements. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB YouTube.com/MMA That's our page. Definitely give us a like, subscribe. Watch the videos. Again, the 5 websites I write for: MMAOddsbreaker.com, SureDog.com, MMAratings.net, MMAnews.com, and BJPen.com. So definitely check those out. Again, guys, it's still new. This is all new for me. Doing it solo. I'm trying my best here. It's a little different for sure. I honestly like doing it with the second guy, but it's nice doing it alone too. I can talk about anything I want, so it's pretty sweet. And again, I'm excited about the Bad Boy sponsorship and just getting the studio organized. I'm going to start getting, like I said, better lighting and some other things technically. So looking forward to that. But once again, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.